Hello. You may notice we're back in our usual location of where my past videos have been, aka my childhood bedroom. I'm home for Christmas, so excuse the mess if there's mess behind me. It is what it is, okay? I'm not here for very long. And I was originally going to wait to film this until I got back to the UK, but honestly, I didn't want to because this is a video that I'm very passionate about and I didn't want to wait to film it any more than I had to be honest. So we're gonna get into it. In 2018, a very small, very niche film was released at the Sundance Film Festival. It was then given a very short theatrical release in June of 2019, followed by a VOD release by July. Not many people know about it. When there was a poll done by the Tumblr blog, "Have you seen this movie?" on whether or not people have seen it, the answers being yes, no, and haven't even heard of this movie. Out of nearly 2,000 votes, 48.2% of people hadn't even heard of it. It may have been small, but to the people that did see it, it was highly controversial. The movie in question, if you can see from the title of the video, is Ophelia, directed by Claire McCarthy, starring Daisy Ridley as the titular Ophelia, also starring Naomi Watts, Clive Owens, George McKay, Tom Felton, and Devin Terrell. This is one of my favorite movies of all time. Which is almost crazy of me to say, considering the amount of people that don't like it. It only has an overall rating of 3.2 stars on Letterboxd, which is crazy because you have far worse films like Blade Runner 2049 having a 4.1. Which that can be a whole separate video on its own, because what do you mean the most misogynistic movie I've ever seen in the last 10 years has an overall rating of 4.1 stars and everyone and their grandmother praises it in the Letterboxd reviews? Like, I seriously do not understand it, okay? I feel like the problem for a lot of people with this movie is that they go into this movie not knowing it's not directly based off of Hamlet the Shakespeare play. It's based on the 2006 young adult novel Ophelia by Lisa Klein. Though obviously, as those of you who have read the book can tell me, because I've also read the book, so I know, it's not an accurate adaptation of the book either. I don't necessarily think this is a bad thing, but I do think it negatively affects both the message of the book and therefore the movie. I think this movie is confused, unfortunately. And like, I still think that it's a great movie. I still love it to death, but I do think that it is confused fundamentally. I'm going to discuss the book and the movie together. We're going to talk about what went wrong, what I would have liked to see done better, what I really love about it. And we're just gonna, I have a script here. It's like over here to the side if you see me like continuously glancing at it. But I'm probably gonna go off script at some point. But first, before we get into all of that, we have some things first. Number one, I still hope you haven't forgotten about Palestine. In the link in my description, as always, is my resource card of places you can donate, how to educate yourself, etc. And I will, always include that. Secondly, I posted a vlog recently. I've decided actually that I hate vlogging and I'm never gonna do it again. I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry, everyone. I don't know if anyone actually enjoyed that, but I'm never gonna do it again. So don't worry about it if you hated it. Third of all, I think that might be it. Oh, actually, third of all, I did want to say, like, I did want to reiterate, I do not make money off of my channel, guys. If you are seeing ads, like mid-roll ads, whatever, I did not put those there. My channel is not big enough for me to monetize it in the first place. And I have no additional interest in monetizing my channel either. So if you're seeing ads, please know that they're not because of me. Please use an ad blocker. Like when you're on my channel, please use one. Anyway, I just wanted to say that because I know, you know, we live in a society, and I'm not going to, you know, begrudge anyone getting their bag. Like, if you can monetize your YouTube channel, monetize it. But I just wanted to say, like, I am taking a firm stance right now, and my YouTube channel will never be monetized. Okay, so just know that if you are seeing ads, please get an ad blocker, please skip them, do whatever. They are not because of me. Okay, just wanted to make that clear. Anyway, to start this video off, we're going to summarize the movie so you know what we're working with, because I understand that not, shockingly, not everyone has seen this movie. And if you've actually have seen this movie within recent enough memory and you remember the plot well enough, feel free to skip this section. I'm gonna have chapters enabled so you can skip around to whenever you like. I don't quite know what the timestamp will be. I'll put it here additionally, but feel free to skip around. So we're gonna start with the synopsis of the movie. Ophelia begins with the child Ophelia arriving at court with her older brother Laertes and their father Polonius, who had just been taken on by the king as an advisor. As a child, Ophelia is a bit neglected, with her father favoring only to protect his new status and rise in the court ranks. Their mother has passed away, and her brother teaches her how to read and about science when he can, as girls aren't allowed to study. And she ends up gaining the attention of the queen at a banquet one day, after witnessing Yorick, the jester, and Claudius, Hamlet's uncle, making fun of the prince. The queen decides to make Ophelia one of her ladies, and Ophelia ends up joining the court. Now, as a young woman, because the movie pretty quickly flashes to like the present day, where Ophelia is a young woman and she struggles to fit in with the other ladies in waiting. She is from a common background. She is not wealthy like the rest of them. And she is frequently bullied by one lady in waiting in particular, Christiana, though the queen does dote on Ophelia and holds her in pretty high favor. Especially after she offers to read to the queen at night because she knows how to read. For most of this time, Hamlet is gone away to university so far, but eventually he and Horatio return, meeting Ophelia now as a young adult. A side plot is the queen, who is being pursued by Claudius before King Hamlet is dead. The king has not died yet. But it is established that Claudius is going after the queen before he dies. So just know that. While she does at times return his feelings, she's very clearly conflicted about it. Her relationship with the king is kind of fraught at this time because he is much more focused on war and the incoming of their enemies, from Norway, I think the movie has it be, and he's much more concerned about that than about his queen. So she's feeling very like forgotten by him at the moment. Additionally, Ophelia is instructed by the queen to go get her a new bottle of her tonic from the healer/accused witch Mechtilde, who bears a striking resemblance to the queen when Ophelia meets her. Just so you all know, for reference, the queen and Mechtilde are double cast. Naomi Watts plays both of them. Importantly, It is introduced that Mechtild owns a venom that if you take 3 drops of it, it will only make you unconscious but appear dead. So if you've read Romeo and Juliet, it works like the poison there. Okay. Now with Hamlet visiting court for the summer, he and Ophelia find themselves meeting over and over and falling for each other. However, on the day he is due to return to university, he tells her his father would not allow them to be together, and she leaves hurt. Additionally, Laertes also leaves for further schooling in France. During the time Hamlet is gone again, Ophelia sees a mysterious and startling figure on the parapets of the castle. The very next day, the king is declared dead. Not long after, the queen remarries Claudius, and Claudius is crowned king. On the day of the wedding, Hamlet and Horatio return. Hamlet obviously is distraught, and now begins the plot of Hamlet as everyone knows it, with some differences, I must say, so we'll get there. He and Ophelia eventually fall in love and marry in secret and have sex. This is important. You need to know that they fuck. Ophelia has a conversation with Horatio one day when she sees him in the library, discussing grave digging briefly, and she tells him not to dig her up. This will be something that comes up again later. Ophelia finds out from Mechtild that Mechtild was once with child by a man who claimed he would marry her. When she miscarried, there were cries of witchcraft and people were going to burn her at the stake. She used the poison and escaped, and took the remedy in time to live. She said that the man she loved was recently married, implying this man was Claudius. Additionally, she's the queen's sister, in case you haven't, in case you didn't get that from me saying that they were double cast. She is the queen's sister. Okay. Ophelia once again sees the mysterious figure leaving Mechtil's, and one day when attending to the queen, realizes that the mysterious figure was Claudius. She searches the pockets of his cloak hanging on the door and finds the poison Mechtild spoke of and steals it. Claudius nearly catches her in this action, but he doesn't catch her, but he still says that she's dangerous and discovers confirmation of Hamlet and Ophelia's wedding. Using her as bait, he tries to determine whether or not Hamlet is mad. It's the famous kind of like, go to a nunnery, get thee to a nunnery scene. Except here it's framed differently, where Hamlet is telling Ophelia to go to the nunnery of St. Emilion, where his mother grew up, in order to get her to safety. So it's like a different sort of framing than in Hamlet, where he's like, get thee to a nunnery, wench, you know, like very rudely. Different framing here. As her father Claudius and guards watch on in secret during this scene, Ophelia tells Hamlet out of their earshot that Claudius confirmed killed the king. Hamlet tells her to leave as it will be too dangerous for her to stay, telling her to go to the nunnery that his mother was raised in. She doesn't leave and thus witnesses the play that Hamlet sets up that retells the story of how the king was killed. Hamlet pulls his sword on the king and is charged with treason. The queen finds out about Ophelia's relationship with Hamlet and, upset, dismisses her from her position. Ophelia's father is incredibly unhappy about the state of events, saying that now she is dismissed, he will soon follow. Again, only thinking of his reputation, he goes to the queen to beg her forgiveness. The next morning, Ophelia is woken by Horatio, who tells her that her father is dead. She goes to the queen's rooms and finds him there, and the queen tells her that Hamlet killed him in an accident because he thought he was Claudius. In despair, Ophelia attends her father's funeral accompanied by Horatio, with Hamlet nowhere to be found. Horatio tells her Hamlet is to be sent to England with Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. Laertes returns from university, set on revenge on Hamlet, and Claudius is only too eager to agree. Ophelia is forced into another marriage, this time to a guard who has harassed her and other ladies in waiting in the past, but before her wedding, Christiana tells her that Hamlet is dead. Ophelia goes to the parapets intent on suicide, but Horatio talks her down, telling her that Hamlet still lives. Overhearing the guards asking Horatio where Ophelia is, she knows she needs to escape and tries, but is caught by Claudius, who reveals that he was the one who cried witchcraft on Mechtild. She is brought to a cell by Edmund, one of the guards, and fights off his advances, escaping. She pretends to be mad, bringing flowers to the queen and Claudius, and tells Horatio to dig her up, saying she would be a great anatomy lesson, before escaping the castle with poison in hand, taking 3 drops before she runs into the river, appearing dead soon after, as though she has drowned. She is buried, but Horatio digs her up and opens her coffin, revealing her alive. She and Horatio begin to make their way to Hamlet's ship, but they find scouts for a neighboring army from Norway. Ophelia tells Horatio to go back and warn everyone at court, while she goes to find Mechtild to take the remedy for the poison. Ophelia confronts Mechtild, asking her why she would help Claudius when she discovered it was he who cried witchcraft on her. Mechtild nurses Ophelia back to health, but disappears after to assist the army in getting into the castle as revenge on Claudius. The queen, trying to visit her sister, finds Ophelia the next morning. Thinking she is a ghost, she tells her everything that's been going on and begs forgiveness from her, but soon figures out she's actually alive. She helps Ophelia get into disguise in order to try and stop Hamlet from fighting Laertes to death. Simultaneously, we see Claudius lace Laertes' sword with poison, intending to kill Hamlet. Ophelia makes it back to the castle in disguise and finds Hamlet about to fight. He is shocked she's alive, but when she tries to get him to escape with her, he refuses, saying he's intent on revenge. She can't stop him and instead escapes, leaving Elsinore and Hamlet behind forever. Hamlet and Laertes fight and die. The queen kills Claudius in revenge, and the neighboring army invades the castle. The queen kills herself with the poison from before, where her sister finds her. Ophelia makes it to the convent, and finally she is shown years later with her daughter, who was conceived when she and Hamlet were married. I think I went through the plot of that in record time, to be honest. I think I did so well. I think I really did so well. So the book. First, to give you some background, Lisa Klein did her doctorate in Elizabethan poetry, and while she wasn't trained solely in Shakespeare, obviously she's incredibly familiar with it, since it still falls under the umbrella of Elizabethan poetry. She was inspired to write this while teaching Hamlet to her students, who were often upset at how passive Ophelia seemed. Also, in the conversation with her at the back of the book, she strongly encourages her readers to go and read Hamlet, or reread Hamlet and Shakespeare's other works. She clearly has a love for it and the history, so I wanted that to be clear, just because in this landscape of retellings and, book talk, I think the idea of retelling a classic story from another perspective has been really, really looked down upon as of late in recent years, but I just wanted to make that clear that she does actually have a real passion and real knowledge in what she's talking about here, and it's not just a cash grab, essentially, is what I'm trying to say. The young adult novel Ophelia has 3 parts. Part 1 being Ophelia's childhood, her arrival, and growing up in court when she is taken on by the queen. Part 2 is the plot of Hamlet, the Shakespeare play, from her perspective. And Part 3 takes place after she escapes Elsinore and how her life turns out after that. The book is strongly centered on women: Ophelia and the queen, the other ladies in waiting, Mechtild, the nuns at the nunnery. It is a very women-centric book, which is very nice. There are parts of the book that I really wish made it into the film. For example, when Ophelia joins the court, the woman that takes care of her is the oldest lady in waiting, Elnora. A lot of her lines are given to the queen, actually, but I wish she had made it into the movie. She was really impactful on Ophelia's life, and I really wish that she had made it in, especially because Elnora is one of those characters that gives the world of Hamlet a little more depth. It just fleshes it out a little bit more and makes it feel a little bit more lived in and real. Because, you know, obviously this book is written in prose and not as a play, like with dialogue and things like that. So, it's more difficult, I think, to kind of flesh out the world of Hamlet in a way that makes sense when you have it in prose as opposed to in a play format. Anyway, additionally, in the book, Mechtilde is not the queen's sister. I think I know why in the movie they made her the queen's sister. There's a lot about this book to streamline into a movie, and to fit into the length of the movie. I understand that, you know, if they were to introduce too much or too many characters who are outside the canon of Hamlet, the more you run the risk of people being taken out of the story. I fully understand that because, you know, to introduce another woman who's kind of a major player, but who's not a character in Hamlet, I think that would be very jarring for people. So you explain it away by saying she's the queen's sister. Like, oh, the queen just has a sister. We didn't think of that. It was never mentioned in Hamlet. Oh, she has a sister. That's a much more of like a leap that people can take, instead of bringing in a whole other woman that hasn't existed before. I think it's very similar, and I'm not going to say this is fan fiction because it isn't. I am very strongly against calling every retelling of something fan fiction because I don't think that it's true. Fan fiction is very specific circumstances, okay? Like, as you probably know, I already have an entire video on AO3 and my thoughts about AO3. I have a lot of them. And I'm very passionate because I am someone who writes fan fiction, okay? I am not coming at this on a high horse or whatever. I write fan fiction, bro. I'm writing a fan fiction that is 10 times the length of my master's dissertation, man. Like, I do not play around. I'm not fucking about here, okay? Like, I understand what it's like to be a fan fiction author. I do not think that this is fan fiction because not only fan fiction is specifically like you are taking characters that exist in an existing setting and playing around with them in different circumstances. Like, you are not, most of the time, you are not altering the main world or the main plot too much. Obviously, the plot can change. It's a fan fiction. You have to engage with the source material first to truly be able to participate in fan fiction culture for that thing, right? Like, in order to read, say, my Mo Dao Zushi, the Untamed fan fiction, you need to have knowledge at least of Chinese dramas, specifically of the wuxia and shanxia genres, and you need to have at least engaged with either Mo Dao Zushi, the book, the audio drama, or the Untamed, the TV show. You need to have engaged with at least one of these because otherwise it's not going to make any sense. Ophelia, the novel, is a standalone novel. You can read Ophelia without having read Hamlet, and that's the point, because the author knows the audience of this book is obviously older middle grade, I would say, like ages 11, 12, 13, and very early teens, okay? That's the audience of this book. It is a entryway into Shakespeare. It is a way to make Shakespeare more accessible to people. So you do not have to have engaged with Shakespeare before in order to read this. And like, I know that there are probably going to be some people out there who will read fan fiction for things that they have never engaged in their life, but pretty much, as a hard and fast rule of fan fiction, you need to know the thing that you're talking about, right? You need to have some background knowledge of the thing that you're going to be reading fan fiction for, or else it doesn't really make any sense to engage with. But Ophelia is fundamentally not like that. And also Paradise Lost is not fan fiction either. Oh, I hope that helps. The Divine Comedy is not fan fiction either, by the way. Anyway, sorry, I just had to say that because like fan fiction wouldn't exist without copyright law and capitalism. So, you know, the fan fiction is specifically a product of that. So that's another video, guys. That's another video. It's another video. I won't get into it. I won't get into it here. Hopefully my rant has made sense. Ophelia the novel is not fan fiction of Hamlet. It is a standalone novel. You do not have to have engaged with Hamlet in order to read it. That is my statement right there. And with that, it is not an easy book to adapt into a film, okay? When you have an audience who will be expecting the plot of Hamlet, that is what you're pressured to try and give them. You want to deliver the thing that looks the most similar to Hamlet. And that, unfortunately, is where I think this movie gets confused and where it fails. Because Ophelia the book is not trying to be one-to-one Hamlet as we know it. It is trying to imagine what the story would have been like if it was focused on Ophelia and she had more interiority and the world of Hamlet was widened just a little bit to be more realistic in a prose sense. So, you know, like the movie kind of reducing it down to just trying to be a retelling of Hamlet from Ophelia's point of view does it a huge disservice, in my opinion. Okay. Something I will say, though, on a positive note, is that this movie does a good job of centering the women that it can center. The loss of the other characters, like Elnora, like the other ladies in waiting, things like the nuns, flattens them still, though. Mechtilde is flattened when into being the queen's secret sister. Oh my god, guys, did you just... I swear something was just there, like something like a ghost, something that involved like a secret sister plotline that like was really, really bad. Anyway, Mechtilde's role in the book was not as large as it is in the film because her knowledge of medicines and herbs is what spurs Ophelia's own passion in learning that type of thing. So as a child, Ophelia goes with Elnora to visit Mechtilde maybe once. And after that, Ophelia learns how to do like the medicinal things that Mechtilde can do. Like it really sparks like a passion about plants and medicine in her. And this explains the whole like flowers thing later because she knows all of the meanings of those flowers because she's familiar with plants. That's her thing. And also, Ophelia makes the poison that saves her life in the book. Like she makes the poison that she escapes with in the book and with all of the knowledge that she learned. And I wish that she had been given that in the movie because that would give her like so much more dimension, you know? Speaking of, the book just has so much more dimension, okay? Something I had seen in one of my beloved mutuals reviews of this film was that the problem that with the attitude that this movie takes towards vengeance, and I agree. The book, though, like, okay, this movie takes a very one-dimensional vengeance bad and ruins lives stick, like it takes that angle, and I don't agree with that messaging. And I do think that the movie veers towards that kind of like promoting that kind of messaging. I do agree with that. I will say the book is written in first person. So clearly the idea that vengeance is not a good thing comes from Ophelia's own discomfort with Hamlet's actions. I don't think it's meant to be the moral of the story. But if it is, like, remember the audience that this book is for. This book is geared toward young adult audiences, like very young adult audiences. It was actually first imprinted under Bloomsbury's children's books. And it's meant to be easily digestible. So the movie, though, is very clearly geared towards an older audience. So this is where the discrepancy kind of comes into play, because you have this book that is meant for middle grade or young adult readers, you know, with very, like, much more simplistic messaging of like, okay, we're in Ophelia's first person perspective. In her mind, of course she would think that the vengeance that Hamlet wants to seek on Claudius is bad and inconvenient because it separates her from him, obviously. And, you know, it's a middle grade and very young adult book, so obviously the messaging will be simpler. It will lack the nuance that the original Shakespeare play had because it's for a much younger audience. Meanwhile, the movie is very clearly geared towards older audiences, older teens and up. It's rated PG-13, I think, but like, obviously, like, the themes of this movie, like, other than the anti-vengeance narrative, you know, like, Ophelia and Hamlet do fuck in this movie, like, not explicitly over much, but like, it is still like a very intimate scene that happens. So like, very clearly this movie is geared towards older audiences, right?
Also, I will say, even the book, sometimes it is confusing to tell what, like, grade or what age range this book is for, because it's marketed as a young adult book, which I believe, and there are definitely things where, like, there's, you know, there is the pregnancy plotline with Ophelia. There is, in the third section of the book, there is a plotline with one of the nuns who, like, uses corporal punishment on herself and self-harms in that way. So, like, there are those themes in this book which are definitely geared more towards a young adult audience. But at the same time, the book also includes a conversation with the author and a reading list at the end of it. So, and like, usually those things are found in middle grade books, books that are geared towards, you know, like, you know, 10, 11, 12, 13-year-olds, usually like conversations or interviews with the author or reading lists, especially, and reading comprehension questions. I'm pretty sure, if I look, let me just check. Yeah, there's a reading group guide for discussion questions at the end. So very clearly this is not meant for like grown adult audiences either. Like, the book, I mean, is not meant for like adult audiences. Clearly it veers younger, but sometimes even the book contradicts this, so I'm not really... the entire messaging of, I think, both the book and the movie is a little bit confusing, and therefore the movie gets very confused at times.
And, you know, so that is where this movie gets really confused with its message, I think, because it has tried too hard to, you know, keep what it can from the book, but, you know, doesn't fully commit to the audience that this movie is for. Okay. So overall, I just think that there's some dissonance there. Also, something from the movie that I wish we got more of was Horatio and Ophelia's friendship, and eventual romance. I know their romance, since it's in part 3, doesn't fit into the narrative of the film, because they've cut out part 3 entirely. But I wish he'd at least been there at the end, like with like her and her daughter. Like, I don't know. I understand why it was done the way it was done, though, especially because, like, I don't think Ophelia the novel is aiming to be a feminist retelling of Hamlet. That is not the point. Lisa Klein herself stated that she wrote it because she was inspired by her students, not because she wanted to explicitly write a feminist retelling of Hamlet, right? But I don't think the novel is aiming to be a feminist retelling of Hamlet. I think the movie is. That is another way that there is some dissonance here between the film and the book. I think they have very different intentions, very like different audiences, different intentions. And that is where we've kind of gotten this weird tension between the two. I also, like, in general, I just wish the third part had made it into the film. In it, Ophelia lives at the St. Emilian Convent, which is mentioned in the movie and is where she ends up in like that montage-y scene towards the end. But it's not expanded on. But I want you to know that she becomes a healer for the nuns that live there, and she opens up like her own cottage apothecary at the end, and she not only tends to the nuns but the commoners and farmers nearby, and is running her own successful business of medicines. And I wish we had gotten that in the film because that is so good. It's so good. Anyway, things that I do like. Let's stop being such a negative Nancy about it, because I'm fully aware of this film's problems. I know that, you know, a lot of people have a lot to say about this film. Okay. Mostly because they think it's just a bad adaptation of Hamlet. And that is... It kind of grinds my gears when people think that, because I wish more people would give it a chance, because you have things like Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead that are very beloved films, like cult classic films, you know, that retell Hamlet in a different way. But why is it when Ophelia gets to be the main character that gets the retelling about, there's a problem? You know, I think some audiences, like some critics of this, are coming at it from a misogynistic perspective, which is probably always going to be the case with things like this. But things that I do like. This movie decenters men even more than the book does, which is honestly refreshing. And the movie isn't didactic about it in any way, which is a huge risk when you have like a feminist retelling or a woman's perspective retelling something. Like, you run the risk of being really didactic and really like, you need to learn something. Like, and this movie is not like that at all. It simply shows the perspective of women without making a big deal out of it, which I think is really, really great. I love the soundtrack, the costume design. The costume designer pulled from pre-Raphaelite paintings for the costumes, and that is a 10 out of 10 to me, because as you can see, I have several pre-Raphaelite works of art on my wall. I have Ophelia by John Waterhouse over here. Sorry, my depth perception is not very good with the camera, but it's right there. And then I have Lady Lilith by Dante Gabriel Rossetti down there. And I used to have more on this back wall over here, but I moved them when I moved to the UK, so they came with me to put on my corkboard. But I do have, you know, I am a pre-Raphaelite enthusiast. Okay, so like I literally have a works of Geoffrey Chaucer, like Kelmscott Press reprint, literally right here on this bookshelf that you're standing on. Okay, like I am very passionate about that. So I love that. I think Daisy Ridley does an amazing job as Ophelia. I think she's incredible. I think Devon Terrell is an incredible Horatio, and that's why I wish we could have seen him much more. I really do commend Naomi Watts for her performance as the queen, and her double casting as well. Like, she does a very good job differentiating between the two. And Clive Owens is always a good asshole. I think he gets typecast a lot as like a villainous kind of guy, but I think he does a good job at it, so I'll give him that. Other than that, I really do love this movie. It's shot beautifully. It's shot in the most beautiful locations. It is clearly a film made with passion and love, and I love when that comes through in a production like that. Very clearly there was so much effort put into this, and I really love it. I really do love it. I really highly encourage you give it a chance. I encourage you read the book as well. The book is a very interesting read. I really encourage you to give it a chance, honestly. I know that for people who are Shakespeare enthusiasts, who do know a lot about Hamlet, I know that it's really easy to, you know, pick out the discrepancies as they come and criticize this movie for that. And like, I don't blame you at all. I understand, you know, my degree being in what it's in, I'm in a very niche, very specialist degree. And so when I see people talking about, you know, people who don't have my level of knowledge talking about what I'm studying, I do get very defensive over it. And I do get very like, you know, over things like that. So I understand it completely. But I would say, please give it a chance. Please. I do agree with my mutual as well in the same review that it could have been interesting if they had abandoned this as the plot of Hamlet and made it into, like, changed the names and made it into something else entirely. I think that would have been a cool and interesting move. I still like it as a retelling of Hamlet, but I understand where people are coming from when they say that they wish it just had been its own story. And other than that, I really hope that you're able to give it a chance. So if you have seen this movie, please let me know. I would love to talk about it with you, because it feels like no one has seen this movie. So please talk about it with me if you have seen it. If you haven't seen it, I really hope that you give it a chance. And if you didn't like it, if you saw it and you didn't like it, please feel free to tell me why. I would love to have a constructive conversation with you guys. I mean, all of my viewers have been incredibly nice when it comes to comments like this. So please, guys, if you want to have a constructive conversation with me or with each other in the comments, that would be great and incredible. And I would really love to hear your thoughts on it. If you do end up watching it, if you haven't seen it before and you do end up watching it, please let me know what you think. I think that will be it from me today. This is a shorter video than usual, which makes me really happy because I really love making video essays or videos of this type where I talk about something and, you know, I bring like either academic research into it or things like that. So I really am glad to be able to make something a little bit shorter for you guys that's a little bit more digestible than my typical, you know, 1 to 3 hour, you know, video length type things. Speaking of, if you are interested in my other videos, I have one about the problems with AO3 and I have one about the Wuthering Heights cinematic universe. I also have a follow-up video to the Wuthering Heights video where I discuss the new one. It's not out yet. The movie Wuthering Heights is not out yet while I'm filming this video, but I did talk about the trailer and my problems with the new Wuthering Heights adaptation. So if you're interested in that, please scoot on that way. I will have an end screen where you can go or you can click on my channel. If you'd like to subscribe, go for it. You don't have to, there's no pressure. I'm not making videos for money or anything, so literally there's no stakes. It's just, if you like to hear me talk, you can subscribe to hear me talk some more. If not, that's okay. If you're in here and out, it was nice to see you. Other than that, I'm not sure when my next video will be. I have some ideas, but they'll all take a long time to execute. So hopefully before that, I like disperse with shorter videos like this one. I really do want to make a video on ITV's Victoria, because it fascinates me. The woobification of Queen Victoria is something that fascinates me because it goes hand in hand with the woobification of Empress Elizabeth of Austria-Hungary. So I would kind of like to compare Elizabeth Das Musical and Sissy, the trilogy, with ITV's Victoria and the narratives that surround Empress Sissy and Victoria. So that's something that really interests me, as well as Downton Abbey and its earlier counterpart, Upstairs, Downstairs. So I'm very interested in those things, but those would obviously take a lot longer to make than one of these. So hopefully I'll come up with some shorter video ideas in the meantime. For now though, have a good day or night or whatever, whenever you're watching this, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.